starting to think I should have taken the aetherite for my trip to Alagiri, but they didn't say they needed my help right away, and sometimes there is something to be said for taking the scenic route. But I wonder, what would you do, Nunkref? With the world ready to turn itself inside out all over again, I'd like to think you'd have saved as many people now as you did back then. Maybe even more. How many people have forgotten your story? How many Sharlayans have forgotten how noble their beginning was? Almost 1600 years ago, during the height of the Sixth Umbral Calamity, the calamity of water, brought on by the hubris of Mach and the carelessness of Amdapor, those floods swallowed so many innocent lives, but 12 Archons were there that raced through Eorzea trying to save as many lives as possible. One such Archon was a man from the north, a towering Rogaden named Nunkref Nunkrefsen. He had foreseen this tragedy through the use of astrology, and with the warning from the stars, he created this mighty vessel of wood and metal in hopes to save as many lives as he could. And save them he did. Men, women, and children of various races and walks of life. He saved many, but the waves of the calamity were without mercy and threatened to rip apart the very sanctuary he had built. A tidal wave of unholy size eventually threatened every plan Nunkref had laid, except for one. In desperation to save the ship and the lives within, he cast an ancient and powerful magic on it. With the spell cast, the ship was saved, having been teleported away from the wrath of the wave that now crashed far away. But instead of the sea, the ship was now perched here, on the ridges of Abalathia's spine. Here, it has rested for nearly 1600 years, a testament to the foresight and magic of Nunkref, the founder of Sharlayan. After landing here, Nunkref saw the barbarism that was unfolding outside his ship. Many had retreated to the high mountains of Abalathia's spine to escape the waters. The calamity had destroyed so much, taken so much. People were desperate, fighting and killing for what little was left just to survive. They were no better than animals at this point, and his heart weighed heavy at the loss of so many lives. He knew it was only a matter of time until those driven mad by instincts tried to take what was on his ship, including the lives of those he had saved. In his wisdom, he waited for the rains brought on by the calamity to calm. Then, he guided his followers and those he saved westward and into Dravanian Hinterlands. Once they arrived on Aldenard's western coast, they built a second ship and set sail without hesitation. The ocean was still restless from the ravages of the calamity, but they successfully sailed to one of the Northern Empty's western islands. Nunkref had returned north, and with him, all those he had saved from the Sixth Umbral Calamity. The Rogaden was hailed as a hero, and all his survivors built a settlement that would eventually grow into the now great civilization of Old Sharlayan. Being the first major civilization to grow in the wake of the Sixth Umbral Calamity gave them a huge head start in development and research. Sharlayan firmly established itself before any other nation, and sticking to their beliefs, began to explore, research, record, and develop rapidly. This lends to their symbol, being the now familiar green shell. Men believed mollusks to be immortal, or at least have been one of the first things to live. So they now use their spiral shell to represent their unending pursuit of knowledge and the desire to keep that knowledge alive. Additionally, while it was a Rogaden that can be held as the founder of this country, they intentionally keep the population and racial statistics confidential and out of public hands. This is done out of a desire to keep the diverse races of those living within the country to all feel equal beneath their banner. There are no races, only Sharlayans. Fast forward a few centuries, and now their small settlement has grown into a seat of knowledge and wisdom. This is a large part to do with the fact that it has tried to stay true to the words of their founder. All who lived in Sharlayan pledged themselves to Nunkref's ideology, which was to forever renounce war and walketh in the light of wisdom and reason. This was evident in their governance, which was first called the Ecclesia, a congregation of all adults in the nation to debate and vote on major and minor decisions. It was the Ecclesia that voted to make Thaliac the Scholar the patron deity of their new nation. Under their new motto, "Knowledge seeks no man," Sharlayan became the most educated nation in the world. In the year 201 of the 6th Astral Era, the Ecclesia already became overwhelmed as the number of those living in Old Sharlayan grew beyond representation. Thus, the Forum was created. The Forum is a group of 99 elected officials chosen by popular vote by those of age. Among them is the Speaker of the Forum, who serves as the head of state. But this is mostly honorific, as the Speaker's power is greatly limited by law, and gross majority of decision-making is decided by the Forum in its entirety. In the year 432 of the 6th Astral Era, the Studium was officially opened and began teaching all those who attended. This college of learning encouraged people to learn from as many fields as possible, from physics to philosophy, arcane, and the occult, hoping to broaden the horizons of all those in attendance. In doing so, the Studium has created more than a few well-known archons in the past millennia. An archon isn't simply a person who graduates from the Studium, but someone who has not only mastered their field of expertise, but also made major contributions to it. After an archon has been recognized and certified, they're honored by tattooing an arcane symbol on their skin to act as a badge of their station. Within their society, there are many benefits that come with being an archon, the most prominent one being their liberal access to the forbidden tomes and lore. The studies conducted here have been a great boon to Eorzea and the world at large. However, the most familiar accomplishment of the Studium was made in the year 598, as the rediscovery and recreation of transportation aetherite was made. But the first full-fledged aethernet in Eorzea wouldn't be finished until the year 902, after they reached an agreement with the nation of Baladia to create their aetherite. From there, the use of aetherite became more and more commonplace as Sharlayans built and maintained them across the world. As you know, a fee is taken from those who make extensive and personal use of the aetherite, giving Old Sharlayan a near constant stream of income and making their economy more than stable. Another popular development made by Old Sharlayan is that of their astrology magics that would see the birth of mages called Astrologians. This form of magic was heavily researched and made popular by the scholar Lufon in the early 200s. Sharlayan astrology became exceedingly productive, reflecting Nuncref's own stargazing when he successfully predicted the sixth Umbral Calamity. As such, there were scholars that wanted to spread the power of Sharlayan astrology to improve the world and keep it safe. However, there are those that see this art as something meant only for Sharlayan hands. One such person is a man by the name of Sylvester Albright. He's currently serving in the Forum as a representative of the Bibliotheques, a conservative group that believes Old Sharlayan should simply observe the world and keep its knowledge to itself. While he has gone out of his way to try and prevent the spread of Sharlayan astrology, he has failed, as Asgardian astrologists have already begun to follow the lessons left behind by Lufon, creating a new generation of astrologians in the wake of the Dragonsong War. Speaking of times closer to our own, in the year 1311 of the 6th Astral Era, they returned to the Dravanian hinterlands and built an outpost to study the powerful connection to the ethereal sea found within, which eventually led to the creation of the Anti-Tower. This area became a stop for all academics of Eorzea, making it grow into more of a settlement and place of learning, reflecting Old Sharlayan itself. In the year 1361, Old Sharlayan officially declared this settlement to be a colony and extension of their country. It was happily welcomed and became one of the major city-states of Eorzea, just like Gridania, Ul'dah, and Limsa Lominsa. It's no wonder that Old Sharlayan has become such a force in the current age. In the beginning, they had Nuncref's wisdom to act as their foundation, and build off of it for more than 1,000 years. They had a head start on rebuilding in the 6th Astral Age and haven't stopped since. The benefits they bring to the world makes it unwise to invade and stop them, and even if you tried, their power over ancient magic is enough to detract almost everyone. They made and continue to make lives better for themselves and the world through their magical research and educated methodology. They only paused to consider their position in the world during the violent advance of the Garlean Empire. In the year 1577 of the 6th Astral Era, knowledge that Garlemald had captured Aldamigo reached the ears of the Forum. Their country had not participated in any wars since their foundation and wished not to break their vows to Nunkref, their founder. As such, they sent ambassadors to Garlemald trying to stop their advance and cease their violence through peaceful negotiation. But nothing worked, and Sharlayan envoys had to return home with shame in their company. It was in the wake of these failed peace talks that a prominent member of the Forum, Fortunal Leveilleur, elected to abandon their colony in Travania. This decision was met with popular vote and plans to evacuate began. It took 5 years of extensive preparation, but in the year 1562, the once proud city-state of Sharlayan was thoroughly abandoned overnight. Leaving nothing but an empty shell for nature to retake, the only original Sharlayan to still live there is an archon by the name of Matoya. The Forum would tell you she was left behind as a sort of guardian of those things they couldn't bring with them, like the Antitower, an honorable position only she could perform. But Matoya herself would say she was abandoned because of her open distaste for how passive and political their country was becoming, and they wished to be rid of her. Nevertheless, she maintains a vigil over the ruins of the city-state and only grants what knowledge remains to those she sees as worthy of it. After all, she is a Sharlayan at heart still, and if you prove yourself to know the weight of knowledge, she will give it to you in her own begrudging way. With the successful retreat back to the Northern Empty, the Sharlayans felt they could breathe the air of peace whilst Eorzea fought its wars with Garlemald. However, not all were satisfied by this. There were archons amongst those in Old Sharlayan that saw this act as cowardly and hypocritical, citing that Nunkref himself didn't hesitate to save the lives of those in danger, and here they were abandoning innocent people to a callous tyrant. Unfortunately, the majority of votes in the Forum turned down those who petitioned to help Eorzea. One of the major players against those petitions being none other than the aforementioned Fortunal Leveilleur. He holds a deep respect for Nunkref's beliefs on non-aggression and has gone out of his way to dismiss anything that would make his country an accomplice to wars of the world. However, while conservative, he's not to be taken lightly. On all accounts I could find, he's made himself to be an extremely powerful mage with an intellect to match it. But in a sort of act of defiance against him and his country, his own father, Louis-Sois Leveilleur, created the Circle of Knowing and went back to Eorzea to try and end the Empire's advance. After his passing during the 7th Umbral Calamity, the students of Louis-Sois would continue their work and invite Eorzeans to join them, creating the Scions of the Seventh Dawn. They were a seed of hope planted by Sharlayan hands in Eorzea's rich soil that has grown into a force that would make gods hesitate. And that brings us back to today. In the early years of the 7th Astral Era, what happened to you, old Sharlayan? How humble your beginnings, and how wise you've grown over the years. Your developments in technology, magic, and physics has left the world in awe more times than any could hope to match in the 6th and 7th Astral Era combined. But in the past century you've grown silent, hoarding your knowledge like a greedy monster, thinking the lives of everyone and everything else below you. This may be my personal bias, but I believe that Nunkref would hang his head in shame at what you're becoming. Hopefully there are still those in your country that yearn to share your wisdom with the world. Good day! Thank you for staying to the end of my lesson. It's my hope that you found something new and interesting in between my ramblings. If you did, consider subscribing and liking this video. Doing that is the easiest way to tell me I'm doing a good job at feeding your thirst for knowledge. If there is a topic you'd love to learn more about that I've yet to cover, Let me know in the comments and I'll see where my research takes me. I'd also encourage you to share what you learned here with your friends and adventuring companions, and if they're interested, bring them to the next assembly. I hope to see you and any other curious travelers in the next lecture. Till then, stay safe, my friends.